At the sharp end of the Champions League, you need players who are great in moments, who can really decide a game by themselves, who can take a game by the scruff of the neck. And Napoli have one of those, Osimhen, who is a game-breaking kind of centre forward. So without him, they could really face problems against AC Milan, potentially as much as downgrading them from favourites in that particular tie. Hi, I'm Solace, Senior Editor of All Sports. This is State of Play. At the weekend, AC Milan pulled off a major upset. They went to the home of the league leaders, Napoli, and won by 4-0. What was noteworthy about it was the fact that Napoli were without their leading scorer, Victor Osimhen, who picked up an injury while on international duty with Nigeria. Now, as we know, Napoli play typically in a 4-3-3 system. Usually, Victor Osimhen has the number 9. Victor Osimhen is a very peculiar player in that he's pretty much a complete forward. He's quick, he's big, he can run for days, and he pins defenders. So because of that, Napoli typically have a lot of space to play in the middle of the pitch. So typically, Napoli are a very acute possession team. They usually start with Stanislav Lobotka at the base of midfield, who is a fantastic midfielder, good controller. He sometimes drops in between the centre backs and allows the full backs to go forward and Napoli go from there. But with Osimhen playing up front, whenever Zielinski and Anguissa, who are the number 8s, are pressed and Napoli cannot progress the ball, you usually see a long raking pass from the back straight into Osimhen, who will pull into the channel and isolate one of the centre backs or even battle both of them to get Napoli up the pitch. Now, in this game here, Napoli did not have the services of Osimhen, obviously. They started Giovanni Simeone up front. Simeone is, a really good striker, but as we know, not on the level of Osimhen. He's a scorer of great goals, more than a great goal scorer, if you could put it that way. In this game here, what AC Milan did was basically in midfield, they went man for man with Napoli. Now, Napoli play a 4-3-3, so in order to mirror that shape, AC Milan played a 4-2-3-1. So they marked Zielinski and they marked Anguissa very tightly one-on-one. And then they put their number 10 on Lobotka at the base of midfield. So what that meant was Napoli could not play through as easily as they usually do. And in situations like that, usually they would go more direct. But Simeone does not have the same profile. He doesn't have the same power. He doesn't have the same agility as Osimhen. He's a great mover in the box and he's actually good at ball striking. Those are his strengths. But without Osimhen, then Napoli really lacked an outlet. And you could tell from looking at some of the numbers, pretty much all of Napoli's midfielders were terrible in duels. AC Milan were able to be really aggressive. It's interesting because even though they were really aggressive, AC Milan didn't play particularly high up the pitch. Now, usually if you do that, that means your lines of midfield and defense are not compact. So normally you would have like people killing you in between. You could have Osimhen dropping off to receive to feet, for example, really killing you in that space. But they did not have that option because Osimhen was not there. Ordinarily, if a team loses 4-0, you don't chalk it up to the absence of a striker. But it just goes to show that sometimes the fear factor, football is a very psychological game. The fear factor is important. If Osimhen had been there, you would have seen probably a more circumspect approach from AC Milan in terms of how they pressed the Napoli midfield. Why this is particularly relevant going forward is that these two sides obviously are playing each other in the Champions League quarterfinals. And when the draws were made, my first instinct was to say, okay, Napoli are the favourites, even though when they met earlier in the season, still, AC Milan give them a lot of problems. But typically you look at that and you say, okay, Napoli should be able to progress. However, if they do not have Osimhen for these matches, it could get very, very difficult for them. We saw already that based on what happened at the weekend, AC Milan will be fairly confident they have the right system to play against this Napoli side. So you need Osimhen as an X-factor sort of player. Players like this are particularly important in the Champions League because it's a knockout stage, it's about chaos. Things can very quickly go pear-shaped. We've seen this many years with Manchester City. This is a side who's very well drilled, play really good possession football, but at the sharp end of the Champions League, you need players who are great in moments, who can really decide a game by themselves, who can take a game by the scruff of the neck. A good system will only carry you so far, and Napoli have one of those, Osimhen, who is a game-breaking kind of centre forward. So without him, they could really face problems against AC Milan, potentially as much as downgrading them from favourites in that particular tie. It's interesting because if they get past AC Milan, they face a potential semi-final with Benfica, and that's a very manageable route to the final. But without Osimhen, things could get very, very hairy for Napoli.